let's start with cut 644. This is the president and what he always liked to call the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare.
He calls it Obamacare, and I like the name.
Mm-hmm.
I do care. Those are the benefits of Obamacare. A lot of you have been enjoying new benefits and protections that you didn't have before, even if you didn't know they were coming from Obamacare. Most of the stories you'll hear about how Obamacare just can't work is just not based on fact. The Republicans in Congress are poisoning Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Millions of Americans who've received rebates, they may not know that they got it because of the Affordable Care Act or quote-unquote Obamacare. Let's face it, it's been a little political, this whole Obamacare thing. Potentially shut down the government at this point just to block Obamacare. The whole issue of whether you're for Obamacare or not has become a litmus test in the other party. In Kentucky it's called like Kentucky Connect, and in Idaho it's called the Idaho Healthcare Exchange. And there's a story that came out of Kentucky where some folks were signing people up at a county fair somewhere, and some guy goes up and he starts looking at the rates and decides he's going to sign up, and he turns to his friend and said, "This is a great deal. This is a lot better than Obamacare," which is fine.
It is Obamacare.
He loves it.
He loves it.
It's Obamacare. Now, here's what he said right before Obamacare launched.
Once it's working really well, I guarantee you they will not call it Obamacare.
Okay.
Oh, they love that.
Yeah,
they love that.
But the question is, who's he talking about?
Here is a prediction for you.
Okay.
A few years from now, when people are using this to get coverage, and everybody's feeling pretty good about all the choices and competition that they've got, there are going to be a whole bunch of folks who say, I always thought this provision was excellent.
Are they?
I voted for that thing.
Okay.
You watch.
I'm watching.
Yes.
It will not be called Obamacare.
It will not be called Obamacare because those people will run from the name Obamacare. Now, you've heard what he said prior to the launch, how he was constantly calling it Obamacare. And then you heard him say, as soon as it launches, in a few years, nobody is going to want to call it Obamacare. Quote, they will not want to call it Obamacare. Little did we know the they was him. The royal they.
And it would happen a little sooner than a couple years.
Yeah, and since the launch, here is the president speaking about Obamacare.
So that's the Affordable Care Act. Republicans in the House of Representatives refused to fund the government unless we defunded or dismantled the Affordable Care Act. It's all about rolling back the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is a law that passed the House, it passed the Senate, the Supreme Court ruled it constitutional. Even though the government is closed, a big part of the Affordable Care Act is now open for business. Well, starting today, thanks to the Affordable Care Act, Trinace can get covered without forcing her daughter to give up on her dreams. The last 3 years since I signed the Affordable Care Act, they have factored in the Affordable Care Act. They don't think it's a problem. What's weighing on the economy is not the Affordable Care Act. I'll work with anybody who's got a serious idea to make the Affordable Care Act work better. They've shut down a whole bunch of parts of the government, but the Affordable Care Act is still open for business. Yesterday, we updated the website's homepage to offer more information about the other avenues to enroll in affordable health care. The Affordable Care Act created a new marketplace. Today, the Affordable Care Act, we built the Affordable Care Act on this template. Somehow, because of the Affordable Care Act, they may be losing their existing health insurance plans.
Golly.
Remember, before the Affordable Care Act, these bad apple insurers had free reign. If you had one of these substandard plans before the Affordable Care Act became law, under the Affordable Care Act, unlike the Affordable Care Act, which will actually help lower the deficit, some of the same folks trying to scare people now are the same folks who've been trying to sink the Affordable Care Act from the beginning.
I love it. I love it too when he's got that twinkle in his voice. The same folks that are trying to take it down the beginning. Well, let me show you one of those folks.
Oh no! You got a folk?
No, I want to show you one of those folks.
I don't want to hear from these folks.
One of those folks.
These folks are evil, though. Do we really want to play folks like that?
Play it. Cut 653. One of these folks and what they've been saying from the beginning. And I want to show you because when you go back in time. And
what are you talking about last week? We're going back to last week with one of these folks? Week before.
No, from 09 and 2010. What did one of these folks say? And which one of these folks turned out to be right? If you can't guarantee, which they can't, they'll say, "Oh, of course you can get." You're not going to be able to keep your doctor. Why would we do this?
So just to keep the health care you have, even if you don't get hit by the tax, your employer is going to get hit with higher insurance premiums.
On page 16 of the health care bill, it talks about how you can keep your health insurance unless your health insurance changes anyway when you go to re-sign it. Will serve to move people from their current insurance to a new fancy government subsidized exchange. If you have health insurance, once universal health care is implemented, that you can't change your health care, you can't go to another provider, you can't get out of it any way, shape, or form. If you try to change, you lose it.
Those are all the things that
are happening now. Those folks.
All those folks.
Those folksy folks.
Here's the thing. This isn't a shock to anybody except those in the mainstream media. Did you see the one with, who was it, Dylan Radigan? Or I didn't even.
Yeah,
from MSNBC.
Yeah, I didn't click on it. Do you happen to have it by any chance?
I know this. He was paying, when he left MSNBC, he got a catastrophic plan. He was paying $170 a month for his health care. Now, because of Obamacare, he had his plan canceled, and he now has to pay $600 a month.
For the same catastrophic care. And
it's not even a top-of-the-line plan.
His last line, was it a hashtag thanks, Mr. President? I think he actually said his name, which I won't do. So even he is like, yeah, you tricked me.
Well, I think that there's a lot of people around that think that they've been tricked. I don't know if you saw Vanity Fair's article, The Lonely Guy.
Oh, no.
Is he lonely? This is the most, and you have to read this. This is Todd Purdom coming out and saying, basically, the president is over and he's in real trouble. But you would not believe the vomitous love letter this thing actually is. When Barack Obama, there's $20. When he arrived in Washington almost 5 years ago, the universal assumption was that the young president, who, after all, won office by exploiting every connective tool in the national social and electoral network, would run his White House in sharp contrast to the hunkered down George W. Bush. Like so much conventional wisdom, that impression is proved dead wrong. In fact, his resolute solitude, his isolation and alienation from the other players and power centers of Washington, be they rivals or friends, has emerged as a defining trait of his time in office. He may be the biggest paradox since Thomas Jefferson. In early 2011, when the president's most trusted public advisor, political advisor, David Axelrod, left the White House to return to Chicago, the president made a surprise appearance at Axelrod's going-away party at the grand apartment off DuPont Circle on a wintry Saturday night. Clad casually in a black jacket, he spoke warmly, even emotionally, of an aide who had done so much to elect him. And then he made his way quick around the living room full of cabinet members, other aides, and off-duty reporters, grasping each pre-offered hand with a single relentless repeated greeting. Gotta go. Gotta go. Gotta go. Wait until you hear what the excuses this guy makes for the president, and he didn't know. But it's because he's so smart, he's so decent, and he's so isolated. Who is letting this president down?
Too many people. Too
many people. You are so right. We'll get into that here in just a second. I want you to.
I weep for him.
I do too. I want you to get ready, because the next line is, his self evident isolation has another effect. It tends to insulate him from engagement in the management of his own administration.
Oh, it's not his fault. It's not.
It's
his
the
fault.
latest
not his
round
fault.
of what did the president know and when did he know it on the disastrous rollout of Obamacare.
I bet he didn't know it.
The
He didn't
wiretapping
know.
of
He
German
didn't know.
Chancellor Angela Merkel's
didn't know about
cell
that.
phone.
He didn't know.
No idea.
Raised some troubling questions.
No, because he didn't know.
Were his aides too afraid to tell him?
That's the question
Yes,
I
I think-
had.
I think
Why
it's-
didn't the aides say anything?
Right.
Was
Why
he
did they say
too
anything?
detached to even ask them?
Probably.
that's probably
He's
the
too
problem.
smart.
Or
Or is there another
Or-
possibility?
was it both?
Oh my gosh, I bet it was both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least such glaring failures cast fresh doubt on his invariable assurance to those around him in trouble that I've got this. He may not.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's
is
just because of
fresh
his aides,
doubt.
though. It's just because of his aides.
Thank you.
Thank you. But
back
that
in-
is fresh doubt.
It
'Cause
is-
that is fresh doubt.
None of us had any of this doubt
No,
before.
I was
This is
fine.
all fresh.
When they were saying that they didn't, he never contacted any of his cabinet members. When his cabinet members said, "I've been a cabinet member for 2 years
And
and
have never
I've
talked to him?"
never talked to the president," we didn't have any doubt back then.
But too much isolation.
Yeah.
We knew it at the time, too. There was too much isolation.
Too much
You know, the
isolation.
deal is he's so smart. He only wants to spend time with the smartest person in the world, and that's him.
Have you read this
So he
article?
spends a lot
Have
of
you
time
read
alone.
this article in
No,
Vanity
not
Fair?
yet. No.
Oh.
No, but
Oh,
we're
'cause
all
it sounds-
like-minded on
okay,
this, I
you're
think.
right.
Yeah.
Because that sounds an awful lot like what this article says. Sponsor this episode.